Hello, hello.
Oh, he stopped the music. I was busy dancing back here. Hi, Scott.
Hey, Randall.
Hey, good to see you again. Our weekly rendezvous. When we can put all the stars in the right alignment, we do this weekly.
You know, it's getting warm around here when I put a towel on the back of the leather chair, because this chair is one of those ones that's really soft and really deep. It's all leather, which means if it's a warm day, you don't want to be in a soft, deep leather chair. Trust me.
We've got 106 coming up this weekend here, so this is going to be interesting.
Oh, man.
Yeah. I
used to live out west. Not in this. I did my 12 years in the heat in Arizona.
That's a different on a different scale. They don't measure with Mercury, they measure with Venus. You know, it's the dad jokes had to start early. You know that.
No, I just off topic. I did a number of different jobs back then, and one of them was running a jackhammer out on a job at a natural gas pumping station where the ground was literally so hard, the only way you could break into it was with a jackhammer.
Yeah.
We had to dig 800-foot trench, 1 meter deep.
Oh.
Okay. In 106-degree heat, no shade. And because we were on a natural gas station where there could be an explosion at any time, we had to wear full suits made of Nomex with a hood over your head, and in 106 in the sun. After 3 weeks of this, I was in the most fantastic shape of my life.
Yeah.
Unlike now.
And you can no longer say you don't know jackhammer. Okay, click, and I'm off of here.
Yeah. Where's the kill button?
Where's the big button? Right. Well, we should introduce ourselves just a little bit for those who have been on the 92 previous shows. Scott?
I wasn't. Wow.
Yeah, I know. Ooh, that's like 3D. Well, I didn't know we had a 3D production. You go first, I'll follow up.
Alrighty. I'm Scott Stahl. I have been helping build the Flutter community since September of 2017. I do a lot of different stuff. Right now, I am working as developer relations for appcircle.io. And let's see, I also do some Flutter training and some Flutter development on the side. And Randal is now drinking, so I'm going to keep talking.
Oh, it's fine. I can.
All right.
I interrupted myself. I'm Randal Schwartz. I'm Randal Schwartz, a 40-year veteran of the computer industry. Wrote my first code for hire in 1977, so it's been quite a while. And back there, we didn't have zeros and ones. We only had zeros. You guys have it so much easier. So, but I'm a Flutter and Dart GDE, Google Developer Expert, which means Google has recognized me for at least being able to wave my hands in the right direction at the right time for shows like this. I also want to announce that this week I went full-time Flutter developer. So after my many, many decades of being like the #1 Perl guy, I'm slowly crawling my way up to number 270th in the Flutter community. So I got my slot finally, and I'm pretty happy
you
about
broke
that.
300. So
yeah, that's right. That's all that matters. Well, they said Wim Leeler, my friend who got me into all this, just said that one of his friends that works for Very Good Ventures left there. And so that just means, since he was at the top, means all the rest of us move up one slot. So it's really cool. I'm really was looking forward to that. So that's cool. And so we do this show as often as we can. We try to make it weekly, but like I said at the beginning, all the stars got to line up. And
we have said many times it's hard to get everyone here.
Yeah.
Most people I know are doing at least 2 contracts, if not 3 right now.
Yes.
Flutter has it got really busy after Flutter Engage, and it just took off like a rocket after Google I/O. I have got recruiters calling me all the time on the phone, as well as sending me messages. You know, they're saying, "I know you're not available. You said that, but do you know anybody else?" And it's
some of the people
everybody we know is working.
Some of the people I've seen on some of the various channels that I monitor and patrol, I like to call it, have been talking about essentially they're seeing a double growth in at least every 4 or 5 months. Yeah. And that's huge. I mean, that's a rapidly exponential curve.
But it's
that. Yeah.
Well, and a lot of us who have been around Flutter for 2.5, 3 years, 3.5 years, we knew this day was going to come.
Yep.
It took a little longer than we thought. We thought it would happen during Flutter 1, but we did have to wait till Flutter 2. So, but hey, that's
so much more competition in the marketplace, though. So it's probably why it took a bit longer. Although I'll have to say, Flutter moved faster than the early Perl did, and Perl became the #1 solution for the web. So I see the growth rate for Flutter being faster than Perl was back in the early Perl days.
Yeah. Well, and they Flutter, one of the reasons I love Flutter is they have the advantage of these are all people who worked on Android and iOS apps, a lot of them since the very beginning. So they know where the mistakes were made, and they're not making the same mistakes. That's not to say they're perfect. They're making new mistakes. But at least they're not making the old mistakes. So things are moving faster. Speaking of moving along, why don't we get to the code of conduct? I think I've done this for every single show.
Except last
so far. Randall, why don't you do that?
What? Oh, is that a request for that? Well, I forget the short versions of all these that you've said over and over again, because I'm actually reading the words. So basically, be nice to each other. Don't do things that you would not do to your friends. You know, that's kind of the thing. Treat us all as your friends. Don't post anything if it's way out of line, like adult content, rude, offensive statements. Don't advertise or promote anything. If we see people violating any of these, by the way, in the chat rooms, you'll be gone. That's just a short way to say that. Yeah, you won't get to do that again, or maybe forever. We do have bigger hammers than you think. And don't spam. Don't post the same thing again and again. We're both watching the chat room almost the entire time for the live chat that's going along with this show. And we see the question, and we may not get to it right away. Don't just ask the question again 4 minutes later. We have seen it. And if you ask it more times than one, we're likely to just ignore it or call you out as someone not following the rules. So don't do that. And also, again, harassment's not tolerated. As I said, we've got the big ban hammer that we can pull on this, and you will not get what you wanted, except some attention, which is probably what some of them want. But let's not go there. Okay. Anyway,
and the short version is the ban lists are actually shared across a lot of different things, including the Slacks and et cetera, et cetera. So if somebody gets stupid in one place, we all find out about it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
close enough. Did it work?
Oh, yeah, that'll be fine.
Okay, all right.
Looks like, thankfully, we have some more help to talk about null safety today. And speaking of where it's hot, Argel is down in Hermosillo, Mexico.
Yeah.
Hey, mi amigo.
Cool or not cool?
Hey, I almost did it for one more time. Oh, my microphone was muted. No, I get it before.
A little later. Yeah, we'll
Just
do
give
it a
it
little
time.
later. Yeah.
So how are you?
Hey, good to see
Okay.
you.
So
Hola, mi amigo.
hola, hola. ¿Cómo están? So I have a couple minutes, a few minutes to spare, and well, I help as much as I can when I have enough time. So I'm here. Happy
we
to
appreciate
help.
that. Yeah.
Besides, I mean, this is a really cool, and I right now I'm migrating the app where I'm working with to Flutter 2, null safety and all that. So it's gonna be a learning session for me also. So,
and let's start out with saying that Flutter 2 has nothing to do with null safety.
no.
Dart 2.12 is null safety. Dart's the language, Flutter's the framework.
Yeah.
Now, Flutter has to do with getting rid of your raised button, right? And turning it into an elevated button, and getting rid of your flat button and turning it into a text button.
Yeah.
And
right.
changing
null
the way
safety is a Dart thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's like because I started doing a thread about how we are doing the migration on our end, and well, it has had a lot of steps, but one of the steps in between, we made a library update, but do not make, because it has breaking changes, was a huge jump in between versions, but we stay over 2.10 for Dart. So we only update libraries, and the breaking changes and all the new code, class name changes, all that without being worried about null safety. So, and we were using Flutter 2.2.2, and we were using Dart 2.10. So that's why we were saying it has nothing to do one with the other. We work on updating libraries and no being stressful for null. Maybe a little bit, because some packages already null safety, but it was easier to achieve without all my screen red. That's not cool.
Yeah,
It's bleeding.
I mean, the sooner you can get to null safety, that's good. But like one of the steps we're going to talk about, where you look at the Dart migrate, not Dart migrate. What's the command with the to check whether you can
outdated Flutter fix?
No, the outdated command.
Outdated.
The one where you can see if you have some problems upgrading, or will have problems upgrading.
Is Flutter pub outdated null safety? Something like that,
mode equals null safety.
Mode. Yeah, they're right. That's right.
I love it. None of us have authoritative information in front of us, so we're all just trying to remember. This is the geezer. I remember when I did it. It was like 3 weeks ago, and I typed this. Right. I do old geezer better than either of you in this room, so yeah, I can get away with that. But okay. But that, the nice thing is, the longer you put it off, the more the things you need will already be migrated. However, if you don't run that early in your cycle to find out what is outdated, you can't start applying issues and pressure and maybe assistance to get those things to null safety for that, or start planning on maybe moving away from an abandoned package. A lot of stuff that isn't null safe by now is more obviously abandonware.
Yeah.
So you need to think about that.
Actually, I work with this. I think it's a pretty used package. It's called Flutter Swiper. I moved it to null safety, I think a couple months ago, and I did not knew the creator of this was like lost in another language, and so I created, and people were like, okay, when you gonna move it to null safety? Hey man, it's not my package. I can't post it. I just made them. You can use.
You see what happens when your name gets attached to something.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So, but I mean, you can go. You can use a specific commit. You can use another hit path on your package. So you can use a little bit of workarounds. If you want to be sure it is working, you can fork and use your own. And so, I mean, there are plenty of ways you can do that and keep using it. Or maybe, I mean, it's a pain but you have to sometimes do it yourself. And
Yeah. And we have been having discussions at the top levels. The top men are on this. The top levels about what to do when there is abandonware that's popular, like a mechanism for taking over the namespace, things like that. But there hasn't been. The consensus leans toward once you publish something, it's your name. You can't. Nobody else can take it over without your explicit agreement. And
that can get kind of tough because you're gone.
Right.
You're not answering emails, and because there was quite a bit of chatter about this back and forth, and both sides were talking about it. And finally, I think the consensus was it's on some levels, it's just wrong to take something over without telling the other person. But at the same time, if you can't establish communication, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's like the, Aqueduct and Architect. It's kind of the same letters. Aqueduct was a wonderful package. A lot of people used it. A lot of people deployed websites with it, things like that. But it was pretty much abandonware up until a couple of months ago when a group of people got together and said, well, we'll fork it. And the original owner said, I'm not going to give up the name. And so they created a whole new project.
Or get out of the way.
Yeah, right. But they created a whole new project and created a new logo and called it Conduit. So if you're wondering where Aqueduct went, it's now Conduit. So look for it under that name.
I sometimes I don't get that. I mean, I get that you don't have any time. I get that, but okay, it's an open source, so just keep it as open source.
Right.
Yeah.
I think I'm surprised that they didn't name the fork Aqua Channel.
Right.
Aqueduct, Aqua Channel.
Aqueduct tape. It really sticks to you.
So anyway, folks.
Okay.
I have the power.
I know. Buttons move and people move away. So what other experiences? I can't get that name.
If you feel better and it's easier for you, another name is Franco. You can be Frank if you feel like.
Franco.
Franco.
Yeah.
Yes.
Franco.
Okay. Well, anyway, I'll just point to the screen and say that guy. What else did you do? What else did you find in looking at null safety migration, even though you didn't end up doing it yet?
And one thing, okay, I happened to mention this on the last stream too. Argel has a bunch of experience with Redux. So going through your Redux code for null safety.
Oh no!
Okay.
Tell us about this horror story.
on this time, I can't specific talk about Redux because a friend, my coworker, another developer is taking over. We are using clean architecture, and I was the one in charge for the first two of them, data and domain. So I can talk about JSON serializable, retrofit, and a lot of others, but not Redux. But I feel like Redux will. So let me tell you what we did, because I did this specifically. I went over all my my pub spec, and I take over all the packages, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Then I take the current version and I put on the other cell the new version. Then I went every single one of the change logs and verify which of them has breaking changes. And then the ones that have breaking changes, I go in deep and verify which of those breaking changes needs actually work, because sometimes it says like, okay, get it, right? Get it. We have a huge jump. I don't know what we haven't updated like in a year. I know, but it jumps from 3 point something to 7. So it was a huge number change, right? But it actually never have. We are not using the ones that actually have breaking changes. So it was okay. It's a huge jump, but everything is working. I don't have to actually do anything. And
that's pretty good.
Yeah, but then you go and Google Maps and it says, okay, you know, right now you're gonna have this failing, and it's like, okay, that's good. My app is I have one map in all the in all of the place, but and that's what we do right now. That's why the first step for us was library updated without the null safety stuff.
Right.
We moved to 2.2. We remove all the flat and the elevated and all that, and update all the packages that needs to be without the breaking changes. And we left, if it is something about nullable or null safety or whatever, just keep it in there because it's nothing to do right now because we need to fix this on 2.12, right?
Yeah.
So right now we moved to 2.12, so I get that data layer and start going each by each. Like I forgot yesterday when I was about to sleep, I remembered that the build runner and the JSON serializer, all this has JSON notation, right? And you have the JSON key. But I think right now JSON key is going to be deprecated. You need to use config key, and I did not change any of those. So I had to go back to my and change all single ones of JSON keys to config key. And this is like step by step by step. And we haven't even reached null safety.
Wow.
This is like one of the steps that we have done, right?
Yep. You know, I have to say that this kind of a problem where there's been a breaking change in a fundamental library has happened in pretty much every open source community if it's been around for longer than a few years. One of the advantages we have in the Dart community and the Flutter community is that we have a completely available to the public analyzer that can be patched and can be reused. Mm-hmm. For example, RiverPod is making some breaking changes, but Remy, bless his soul, wrote a migration tool that is similar to Dart Migrate to actually upgrade officially. It's not just a bunch of regular expressions running over some text. It's actually analyzing your code like the same way the compiler does and says, no, this is now this, and rewrites it for you. In theory, I haven't gotten to work yet except core dump. So
I don't know, where does he find the time?
I don't know.
I mean, Remy's working on at least one big project, if not more than one.
Yeah.
And he told me a secret one day, which I'm going to give away to the whole world.
Cool.
Remy doesn't drink coffee.
What?
I don't believe he drinks coffee
without having caffeine. Come on.
And he does all that he does. And because I was joking with him before about coffee and something, and he was like, "Oh no, I don't drink coffee," and I'm like,
"Yeah, but I mean, is not the coffee the only thing that has caffeine? He drinks a lot of tea." So
well, there you go.
Okay.
And I've never had a coffee
have happened
in my
since
life.
He moved to London, if I remember correctly. I think he's still there.
Yeah, I think he moved like more than a year ago.
Yeah.
He said something.
Yeah, I didn't know if he went back to France. But anyway, null safety.
Yeah,
so
we can talk about that.
Let's get into this for folks who are newer. There are the olden days and then there are the ancient days. In the ancient days, Dart was loosely typed. And there was many a nightmare. There were dragons that sometimes they were slain, sometimes the dragons slew the heroes. And then along comes the Dart team to the rescue with strong typing. So everything had to be migrated from loose typing to strong typing, which was quite a project.
It was exciting. It was meant for good times. It meant for long discussions on chat rooms. Yes.
What was that phrase again, Inigo Montoya? That word, I do not think it means what you think it means.
Right, I know. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and then we went from there was strongly typed, but people were still running into null pointer exceptions. And lo and behold, the Dart team came up with this really cool thing called sound null safety. Now, if you're not familiar with this, basically what this is almost a completely duplicate set of types. And the new one that has question mark after each and every single one of them. So you have like int question mark, but you also still have int. The one without the question mark cannot ever be null. All right. The one with the question mark can. So you have these for int, for string, for double, for lists, for everything. Color, edge insets, all of it. And what's going on here is if you don't use the ones that are nullable, then the compiler is able to do some interesting things, because typically when you compile code that does not have sound null safety, the compiler has to build in null checks all over the place. That's how you get a null pointer exception instead of having your laptop catch on fire. So
never a good plan.
That there are all these, once the laptop loses the magic smoke, you can't get it back in. Which reminds me of an old joke from way back, but magic smoke. We'll remember that later.
Yes.
So that's how you get NPEs. Well, the thing is that if you are using sound null safety, it is absolutely guaranteed it's never going to be null. So the compiler can leave all those out. All those little null checks that are constantly checking to see if something's null at runtime, gone.
Yeah, and actually they show they show the assembler code or I can't remember. It was on the in the gauge.
New.
Yeah. I think it wasn't in the engage. Yep. They show this, and I made a question, and I think I get in the question that they don't really know how to answer, but maybe later they can let us know how much smaller or actually in size it can be reduced if you are only null safety, and they haven't actually. They don't even have an actual number, a percentage, or an estimate for that.
Well, you could still do it.
It depends built in there somewhere.
Yeah, and you can do it for your own code just to see what the difference is.
Yeah, definitely.
Performance-wise,
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's not just the end of the end result in the assembler code in the final binary. Performance.
Yeah.
Your CPU is not having to run all these null checks, and it's to go way back into Flutter. When the Flutter universe was young and the planets were not yet formed, Flutter came about due to an experiment that was done by Eric Seidel, and I believe Hixie was also part of the original experiment. They were on the Chrome team. Well, Chrome uses a rendering engine called Sky. And what most people didn't realize is that this rendering engine had to be so awesome and so powerful that it had to run a gazillion if checks to see if there were certain exceptions that had to be handled, such as I believe it's an Israeli bank that has code in the website from the 80s and has never been updated. And if a regular browser runs into that and doesn't check for it, boom, problem. So the Chrome and Sky was checking for all these things, and Eric said it was death by 1,000 cuts. So they looked at what this thing was doing, even with all these checks, and they said, well, wonder what it could do without them. So they stripped out all the checks and they fed it only known good code. And this thing was so fast and it was so ridiculously performant that people at Google looked up and said, hey, wait, maybe there's something here. And that's now Flutter.
Yeah.
Okay, that's where the engine came from. The Sky engine.
Sky, yeah.
Yep. Sky was the original name of Flutter because it's the rendering engine, and that's where we are now. Well, apply the same exact logic all over again to your null safety checks, to checking to see if something's null all over the place. if you strip that out, how much faster is everything going to be? And welcome to the reasons behind null safety. Now, not only that, but everyone loves a good null pointer exception once in a while. Right.
Yeah.
But that's how we ended up getting here. So I'm going to go catch my breath after talking that much, and you guys talk about something.
Well, I wanted to amend what you said there, because you said you can't get a null exception anymore. Well, you can if you let the compiler know, I believe with all my heart and all my soul that this value won't be null by the time you see it.
What Randal is saying is there's always a way you can screw it up.
Yes, but it's just shooting yourself in the foot. So you've seen this in the documentation. If you've stared at the null safety stuff, you've seen exclamation mark. Why are people using all these exclamations in my code? Well, first off, if there's a lot of them, you're probably doing the wrong thing. What exclamation does is it does just like the old code used to do. It puts a null check in there. And if it's null, it blows up. It throws an error, which you can catch to higher level and all that stuff. But let's not change the point. You're basically telling the current compiler to go back to its old standard, which is we won't let you do dangerous things with a null, but we also are just going to blow it up. Yeah, thanks, Scott. Yeah, we're going to just blow up like we used to, and you'll have to handle it as a runtime error. What you should be doing, instead of every exclamation mark you have, is to actually put an explicit, this may be null. The compiler's telling me this might be null, because you'll get fatal errors, or compile time total errors, the ones that won't let you even compile. If the compiler can figure out that this may be null, and you'll get advice, and what you just do is you write, if this is equal to null, then do one thing, otherwise do another, and there's a couple of shortcuts for that. One of my favorites is the question mark dot operator, which will only invoke the method as long as the value you're invoking on is not null. And that works it works all the time, but it doesn't work for every circumstance. And so that's one that comes in, because what will happen is if the left-hand side is null, then the whole value is null, and you're just pushing the problem further down in your chain of execution, because now it's got to deal with the nulls further down. What you really should be doing is saying, if there's any possibility this is null, I need to take another code path and not let the compiler have to work around your problems. And to really solve that problem, on the most part, make sure that none of your variables are using nullable types, because that means 90% of it obviously can't be null at all, ever.
And one of the changes, the thing that this will change is when you were working, null became part of our actual code. We use it for many things. We use it for paint something, for paint some state and screen, to make a decision. Null is definitely the most relevant, important variable that is not variable.
Firebase user, if Firebase user is null, then they're logged out.
Yeah. So like when I was working yesterday, I was migrating this. I find a lot of enums, and then we were mapping, right? And we have if this is, we have to do some mapping in there, and at the end we sell it's a switch, and the end says default null. But this field was not nullable by default. It can be nullable, but because before you can do whatever you want, we leave it as null. So the problem there was I have to create a new enum that is called like default or null or none or whatever to catch this. So right now I'm doing some work on data layer that is going to be moved to domain and passed to presentation, and the guy, my friend, he's doing presentation stuff, is going to receive enum that none instead of a null.
Yep.
So this is going to be a rerun of everything again.
And the same thing with Firebase user. Joe Nobody. Make a Joe Nobody. So when you first initialize the user to Joe Nobody. And then instead of checking to see if the user is null for a log out, just look and see if it's Joe Nobody with a user ID of -1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or when the other person logs out, then log Joe in.
Or if you're comfortable with, because you're coming at it from another angle, anything about functional programming, there are now 4 decent functional programming layers that run entirely within Dart with null safety, with type safety. There are layers that allow you to create what's called an option or an either. And if you know what those terms are from functional programming, this is going to make sense. And then you don't need null as your indicator. You use an option with a value of none. And that's not null. Yeah. So it has definitely been placed there by a human. It didn't just default to that. And I've used that. I have a transformation in my Firebase project to go from user question mark, the nullable user that Scott was just talking about, right immediately into what I've labeled using a type def. That's something to talk about 2.13 out now. Type def that's called option user. And that's never nullable. It's always either a sum or a none in functional programming terminology. By the way, I'm recommending really highly now to watch and help contribute to, if you can, FP Dart in the package library, in the pub, because it's coming along the quickest. It takes off where Dart's, DRTZ, has been sitting for a while and builds on that, and well documented, well tested. I'm learning functional programming just by staring at how the code's implemented on that. It's really brilliant stuff. So I've been using it in production already, although it's still version 0.5, and we already had one breaking change. But I think it's moving in the right direction. So check that project out if you're FP from other places where you have either and none and some and stuff like that. Functional programming, right? If you've seen that somewhere else, you can now do it in Dart. Very cool.
Nice. Yeah. Now, before we get too far down any other path, I wanted to point out something that's really kind of funny. We've gone from no type safety to type safety, now to null safety, right? And yet, there is a blog post from 2015 that is still one of the most important that I keep going back to all the time, because I have a memory like a steel sieve. Not a steel trap, a steel sieve, that you put flour in. Yeah. So I have this memory, I think, and therefore my very top link in all of my Flutter and Dart links is from Seth Ladd.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And it is his, okay. Helps if I do that. Okay. My camera is in the way of my screen.
Oh, no.
There we go. Null-aware operators in Dart. And I'm putting this in the comments right here. Also, this is perhaps the single most useful page I have seen. It's from July 8th, 2015. This thing is almost 6 years old. And yet, it is the one page that helps me more than any other, because it lists out all of your null operators and exactly what they do, because I can never remember them. It's nice and short. It's very clear. And the thing is even from the beginning, I always tried to initialize things to some value, because I originally had learned with C++ and then C# so long ago, I can't remember either of them. But the biggest thing was NPEs. And the way that I learned to avoid them was just initialize things to something, anything, pick something. And so when it came time to do Flutter, I was doing the same thing, and which meant I was never using any null-aware operators, because I never let anything be null if I could possibly avoid it. And hopefully we will have Adel back in just a moment. Sometimes the internet connections can get a little wonky for all of us here. If he left without saying goodbye, he'll be back.
I'm sure he will. I also want to talk a little bit about how null is not just something. Why is it even still in there? I want to get past that. There are some legacy interfaces, as we mentioned earlier, that need null as a distinct value. For example, if you want a button to have an on-tap method, you provide a callback, a void callback to that on-tap parameter. But how do you indicate you don't want the button enabled even? You want it to be in the disabled colors and things like that. Well, you give it null for that value. And I just wrote some code yesterday that said if something is one thing, make it null. Otherwise, make it the thing that actually does the work. And it correctly makes the buttons, the normal color, the normal material colors for this is a disabled button. And so it works. So null is part of that interface. You can't just get rid of all nulls or you'd lose stuff like that.
Because also if you try and use a placeholder of an empty anonymous function, which is just a pair of parentheses followed by a pair of squiggly brackets, and that's it. That's an empty anonymous function. It's still a function, which means the button's going to come up as enabled because you gave it something.
But it does nothing. You click on it forever, and all it does is make the splash, and you go, well, do something, right? And
that's great when you want to adjust the color of the splash, though.
It's true. But and then for other interfaces, baked into the language, even if we decided we won't write interfaces like that, we'll have special values. Baked into the language is the notion that optional parameters, when you don't spell out the parameter, that could be optional position parameters with the square brackets after it in the arg list or around it in the arg list, or a named parameter that doesn't have the word required in front of it. Both of those, the protocol is, if the parameter is not provided, it's automatically given the value null if you ask for it in the list of things. And that's baked into the language, so you can't get away from that. Now, we've learned there are tricks around that. We can use functional programming's none as the meaning for I am explicitly saying there's nothing here. And then you can distinguish between the null that the language gives you and the none that you have deliberately put in place. And we've done some cool stuff with that already to get around that problem. But so those are baked in. And there was a comment earlier. Somebody was asking about the or else. What was that comment back there? That there's
back, but
it's like near the beginning of the show. So why is or else making problems in null safety? And this is from Rebar. If I have a list in my class where class objects shouldn't be null, right? But if you try out first where or with or else, you can't return the null, right? I want both. Well, that problem is it's a legacy interface. And so you can't change that or it would break people's code. One of the nice things about going with null safe code is in theory, it doesn't break a thing. In practice, people are realizing there's a lot of work to do for not breaking a thing. So there's some complaints by that.
Yeah, and actually we can remember this is nothing weird. We already hear Remy in the talk say that he needs to create a new stage management because if he tried to make something for a provider, he will break the code for every single one of the rest.
So, and as providers way too popular to do that.
Sometimes you just need to create a new way. You can just
hello Riverpod.
Yay, Riverpod.
Yes. One of the things that I bumped yesterday, it was working. Is everything was null safety. I wasn't used any nullable in there, and you have a map, right? So you have a map in here, and you have when I send this, it's just showing this and a regular map, and I say this is you can actually change. You can receive a different kind of where you're looking inside that map, right? Because it's the usual way to use to search in a map. But even though everything was null safety, it was sending me sending an error, and it was asking me for the bang uh, symbol, or to. So I couldn't find why it happened, because if you put your mouse on top of it, it tell me like, okay, you this can be null, and I was like, but everything else around it is not null, so how can it be null? It took me a while. I don't know why, but it took me a while to understand that it's a map. So you can send or search for something that is actually not in the map.
Yes.
So what I'm trying to say with this is Dart in some places, because in others it's not that good, but in some places it's that smart that they can help you to understand. You can send something that to search on this map that it actually not exist, and it's going to create a null setback, and you are setting this as null. So sometimes we are trying to search, or it's just I gotta be lazy, I'm gonna put a bang in there, and this is not what I had to do. It's just like I remember this because I was before I closed this tab, instead of the Null-aware operators in our page website that you sent, I use the nullable. So if this is null, then send me the default. Send me some enum null value, or whatever non or default value that I can set, like pending or none or whatever I have created before. So that was the code was asking for, not for the bang symbol. That is the easiest and laziest, so maybe I can say it like that. And it's gonna look okay, but you can, and you definitely it's gonna be able to broke your code and close your app, and it's not user experience for someone. So be sure, read and analyze what the IDE and Dart is sending you back in the Dart analyzer. That's for you to help. Talking about that, maybe I'm gonna be moving from the topic a little bit, but I think last week, Pedantic passed away from this. So that was
no one screenshot that and put it on Twitter. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
So I changed to Flutter lint, and damn.
Oh no, yeah.
It was a huge, bigger list that I had. It was a cleaner Dart analyze tab that, and now I will have to do a lot of work in there for that.
I took like the better part of an afternoon fixing my relatively small code base to comply with Flutter lint. I just kept I have VSC code, and I just kept it on the problems tab in the bottom. And I just kept clicking on one after another. So for me, it was click on one thing, command dot, pick the first thing, click on something, command dot, type the first thing. And it took a really long time. One of the things though I discovered, just again, let's go off topic just for a second, is that Flutter lint will tell you where you can const things. And I didn't realize how much of my code I could make a constant. Because to me, making a new object always seems like that's not constable, but that's not the constable. No, but it's but no, there's a lot of that. So and actually, Scott, we should probably go over the just rather than tell all the individual steps to migrate when you're ready to migrate. Let's just put up the URL for the.
I've already got a lot of that set aside.
Okay, great.
Also, one real quick thing, you will see bangs all over the place like this.
Yeah.
Okay, because the thing is, no matter, even if you initialize my list, the minute you create it, index may not exist. That particular index may not exist, and it's always going to ask you to check for that. It's always going to want to bang there. If you've got red squiggly underneath of my list index, odds are you probably need a bang there. So anytime, just as Adhel was saying about the map, if you're trying to index a key, if you're trying to access a key, if you're trying to, and I will not make a joke about a key in here. It's a Spanish version of a Randal. Anyway, if you're trying to access an index in a list, if you're trying to access a key in a map, or if you're trying to access something in a set, yes, your list, your map, your set exists. They are non-nullable, but the elements are nullable. So you're going to have to check every single one of them individually, which, until you get used to it, can kind of trip you up.
Actually,
go ahead.
Actually, on another package that is pretty used is the one from Felix. I'm not talking about block. Floor block, I'm talking about equatable. This one, it asks you for props, right? But if you have some of the props, some of the fields that can be null, if you put this on the list of the props, it pops an error, right? Because it's a props is a list of object, no object question mark. So if you have the props and some of those fields can be nullable, you need to use object question mark.
Yeah.
And we found it on some issue over equatable. It's not on the front page or anything. You need to go and look for the issues. But this is the same stuff that Scott is saying about if you have a list, some of the fields inside that list, the index or whatever key you put in there, it can be null. So because your code, it could be good, but we'll never know the future. It can fail. So it's better to be assuring that this is in some point this is going to be null. Maybe not in runtime, but it could, and that's enough to add some verification or extra steps in there.
Cool.
So, all right, Randal, I believe you were talking about the migration guide.
That's the point right there.
That is the puppy.
Yeah.
All righty. Let's see here.
We could talk through all the steps that are in there, but they're very well documented. So look at that and definitely follow that. There are commands in a proper order there and things you must do. Do not proceed to step 5 until you've done step 4 of that list. Please, because then I'll hear about it in 3 different Discord channels and then 2 Stack Overflow questions and everywhere. Then I'll hear things like, Flutter 2.0 broke my code.
Oh, yes. Once again.
Oh, that's my biggest lament.
I know.
For
so, hey,
those areas. Yeah.
There's this, one thing I love about the Flutter team and that they have been trying to do, at least since Google I/O 18, there were a bunch of us all talking about trying to make the documentation as easy as possible, also with things like videos and such. And, of course, here they go again with Philip right here. Apparently, he did have some time in between sessions of writing San Francisco Nights, which is a really, really cool app. You ought to go get it. San Francisco Nights, which KNIGHTS. Wonderful little story. It's basically like a Dungeons and Dragons choose your own adventure book. So a lot of fun. But the migration guide.
I was looking into some code. Well, I'm in the wrong. Now in the right tab. I was looking at an email that I was sending. I found some kind of details with null safety the first time that I worked with this. I sent it to Philip. I was looking into the code, the code. So we used to say code into the email, and I sent some because I have issues to using the Dart migration because you need to be sure this is a migration guide. It's going to tell you how to do some stuff, and it has a tool that can help you out with this.
Right.
But I must say, most of the time, the tool will not work. It depends because of your code, and also because of the packages you're using. Uh, in my case, sometimes I try. It was a pretty small code base, and it tell me, okay, I'm gonna run it, but I'm sure this migration is not gonna work. Something like that. It's a message. I can say the right message because I can't remember, but I have to do it manually. It was easier for me to go manually because also sometimes the migration tools, I'm not saying it's not working. It can give you a lot of information, how many steps you have to do on anything, but it's not magic and says, oh, I'm trying to do this and it not work. It may not work. It usually can have, you have to do a lot of work before actually use the migration tool. So use the migration guide. That's going to be your main document right now. But the migration tool may not be what you need. So you need to be sure you understand what null safety is and be able to use yourself, because the tool is just a tool and it will depend also about your code. Like Randall says, maybe you don't know you need that many const. And this is a silly thing. And this migration tool is not going to be adding this. I'm just saying some stuff, the tool is not going to be able to add it.
Well, there was that great video during the Flutter. I keep wanting to say Flutter Explode. No, Flutter Engage. For me, it was Flutter Explode.
Engage,
yeah. So during Flutter Engage, there was
that button again.
There's one of those. There was one of the sort of bonus videos. It wasn't really part of the program proper. It was designed for you to go back and watch it later. Do you remember that one, Scott? The one I'm talking about that had the Dart migration. It was about a 30-minute talk during Engage.
It was for the gallery, right?
No, it wasn't for the gallery. That was a different one. This was for some. I even forget who was starring in it. But I noticed that he had to say to some of the proposed migrations, no, I can just initialize this in a different order and then it'll all be okay. But the migration tool doesn't know that it has those sorts of options. Boy, I wish I remembered the guy's name even.
But I mean, let me just tell you one of the reasons that I send like a feedback. I was using, this is a small project that uses when I make some tutorials for teaching people stuff around there.
Right.
So I have a small project that I migrate manually. I'm using Provider as a stage manager, but that Dart migration tool does not work. It keeps sending an error, and it do not recognize create and child from a change notifier provider.
Ooh,
so,
really?
And that was like a week after Engage, and it was with Provider. At least it should be something they should manage in there.
Yeah.
So if maybe some extra steps must be done in there, I couldn't find it. I actually asked around. So it's just, what I'm trying to say is just remember that migration tool is going to be helpful, but it's not going to do the work for you most of the time. You still need to go in there. When we were talking about how to migrate this with my team, and they told me how we're going to do this, I told them, I prefer to do it manually because I felt that I'm going to lose control of my code if I leave it to the tool. I'm kind of my OCD talking in there, but I just need to know where the changes are. And sometimes there are a code base of many files of, I don't know, 100 thousands lines of code. And if the tool changed everything, I'm not going to know what the tool changed actually. Even though I had to go through PR and everything for the team, some things can be missed, and I don't want to know how it is working and why the migration tool do it like that, right? So I'm just saying, use it wisely. That's it. That's my comment in there.
With great power comes.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Deadpool, with great power comes great irresponsibility.
Yes, right. Exactly. Yep.
Okay, and let's see. Now, what is this link that you just passed me here, Randall?
It was the thing I was talking about. The video that was in the middle of Flutter Engage that showed that he had to actually override some of the things Dart Migrate was going to do.
Oh, wrong one. There are a lot of buttons here.
Yeah, sorry.
You'd think I wouldn't know how to, use a keyboard with all the buttons on the keyboard.
No. Yeah.
So I'll leave that up there for a little bit.
Right.
Also, there's something really cool that that I didn't realize. Now, you remember during Google I/O, they had the adventure where you could go running around to all the little exhibits and you could watch the videos and do the code labs and everything. And you could do them not only for Flutter, you could do them for Android. You could do them for TensorFlow. You could do them for all kinds of things. And then at the end of Flutter I/O, they disabled the chat, right? Well, lo and behold, they didn't disable the entire thing.
Oh.
So we're still here. Okay, and you can go around Dart cheat sheet. It's all here. Adaptive design, Flutter web demos. You can take the map and.
Oh, and I'm still on the I/O stage, on the amphitheater stage.
Oh, okay. You put it there
by cheating.
Now,
yes.
I can't remember. I can't remember how to use the map. You
hack the URL. Yeah.
You can hoof it.
Yes, right.
Okay.
Let me share my screen so I can show you on the thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah, well yeah, Randall did the cheat thing.
Yes.
But as you can see, it's all still here. It's all still open. I don't know if anyone got it, but I did ask for an email to be forwarded. And short version is that what I was asking for was to see if they would add content to it, not shut it down, because this thing could easily be used by everyone. And I think it's a lot more likely for people to go check out another platform's content if all you have to do is run your avatar over there and go walking around all the different little code labs and exhibits. It's pretty cool. I'm much more likely to go check out TensorFlow if I can just bebop on down there.
I'll show you it's live. See, it's me.
So, and there are
still there on stage.
There are ways to hack it, and when you move from place to place, you do it by URL. And if you change the coordinate numbers, you can end up getting places you're not supposed to be.
Yeah, no, I don't want to fall off because it was so hard to figure out how to get up there in the first place. So I can run around on the stage. So I'm in the back here. There's no way through, right? So. And you walk.
You have to be aware, though, it doesn't always work out the way that you had hoped, because I know Remy hacked it and was standing on top of the I/O when we did the big Flutter picture that Eli had put on Twitter,
and he was out of frame.
Cut off, so you can't see. It cut off, so Remy's not in the picture.
Right.
So this can backfire.
Yep. Okay. Enough of that.
But anyway. Yeah, so that's all still there, and you can wander around and check everything out.
Yep. Or get more of the collectibles if you're OCD.
Yeah.
Which I'm not.
So, okay.
So I only have some of them. But I did have a dash in each hand. I did have a dash in each hand, unlike real life where I don't have any dashes yet. It's okay.
I gave away the only other one I have besides my personal one. When was that? No, we did that for a GDG event. That's right. So we were doing a GDG event, and people kept saying, "I wish I had a dash. I wish I had a dash. I wish I had a dash." And I was like, Nilay had sent me one as one to give away. So I'm like, okay, fine. So it went to a GDG organizer out in California, I believe. But hey, all right. We are coming up on an hour and 5 minutes. I know we normally go a lot longer, but we've all got multiple jobs.
Yeah.
And
you know,
there's this thing called a family, and if I end up, working too much into dinner time, I might not have a family.
Hey, Argel, I'm going to be in Tijuana in 3 weeks. I'll wave in your general direction.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Just be sure to bring lots of stuff to keep yourself cool.
Yeah.
Oh, I can imagine. Yes.
Yeah.
Man,
Right
now. Oof.
Yeah. I think right now, which it be around 100 Fahrenheit, around 105.
Wow. Okay, I guess I'm taking my light coat, not my heavy coat. Okay.
Yeah.
You can go no coat also, so don't worry.
You know what?
I gotta have my pockets. The Scotty Vest pockets. I have to have them.
The other day at 3:00 in the afternoon, it was 21 centigrade here, which is like 73 Fahrenheit. I did my 12 years in the heat. Thank you very much. And actually, I did more than that. I did 12 years in Arizona and 5 years in Florida.
Wow. Oh, at least it's not muggy in Arizona.
Just don't tell a whole lot of people. Up here in Cleveland, we've got how you suffer for many months and then you get a short time of paradise. Up here, we suffer for 6 weeks of horrible winter, and then we get paradise for a whole lot of the year.
Okay.
So it's gorgeous. There's no drought. There are no earthquakes. We don't have big tornadoes. No natural disasters. We're sitting on a lake that's so big it takes an hour to fly across it in a plane.
Wow.
So we've got lots of water.
I'm going to open it up just for a second. If anybody has a final question about null safety in particular, but about anything Dart or Flutter related, as a GDE, I'm supposed to be able to answer all that, or at least I'm supposed to be able to Google it real quick. I think that's the main skill.
Does Dart have a package that can help me predict the lottery numbers for next weekend?
No. No.
Because then I wouldn't need 3 jobs.
Yeah.
I was thinking something that I found on my work yesterday.
Yeah.
Saludos, Antonio.
Hey, Guadalajara.
Guadalajara.
So yeah, I mean,
¿Cómo se dice gorra en inglés?
Cap. It's a cap.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sombrero.
So yeah, now a sombrero is different.
Okay.
Sombrero is what the old man sitting by the side of the road with a shovel wears.
Sombrero, it's different kind of sombreros. You can have the cowboy. It's a usual cowboy hat. You have the one for the shadow sombrero. This different kind of hat. But this is just it's a una gorra. It's a cap. That's it.
No, caballo is different.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, just today on my work over null safety. I mean, you may find another stuff. So one last thing that I would like to add in there. Please remember the late exists.
Late.
Mm-hmm. Yes, we did not go over that at all. We need to do that.
Yeah, this late is a friend for you. So please use it and it could help you out a lot of stuff.
And for anybody who does not know, here's the deal with late. Late allows you to declare a variable, just like the old days, and declare it with nothing. But what you do is you say late final int. So now you're declaring an integer that's going to be final, but you're going to be late with initializing it.
Yep.
So what you're doing is you're promising the compiler this will not be null when the time comes to use it. And the compiler says, I'm stupid, I trust you. So it actually trusts you to do this. And it's on you. So, and again, as we said earlier, there are ways you can screw this up.
Yeah.
But, the late can really, really come in handy if you have to go and use a function to get a value before you build your tree.
Right.
Yes, you could give it a dummy value, but a lot of times people will just use late. And a lot of times it's late final because once you assign it one time, you're not going to be reassigning it.
So, like, we need to be careful. You can use, as you said, they trust you. You will. You can use late, and most of the time, use late. You can use late final. Use with the controllers, right? And it is okay, but you need to be sure that you actually initialize. Because most of the time, you forgot to initialize. With people, it's a copy paste and put it on the dispose.
Yeah.
And in the dispose, if you do controller.cancel. If you never initialize and you need dispose, you cancel this, it will fail. It will program, it will explode, not engage, explode.
Well, I don't think it'll compile though, will it? Because it will turn around. I believe the compiler will turn around and say you can't dispose something that's never been initialized.
I will need to double check that.
I think it's a runtime error. You're calling a method on an
look. Either way, it's bad.
Yeah. You don't go much further. Let's just put it either way. Yes.
Yeah.
You don't go much further. It will not do what you want.
No.
Which is to work.
Kind of like my dog.
Yes.
Thousands of dollars.
Let
me tell you something. Thousands of dollars worth of training. Okay. Our training company taught me to train dogs, taught my partner to train dogs. We're very good at training dogs, but what they don't tell you is some breeds are more stubborn than others. It's not that the dog doesn't know. Okay. If I take the dog's favorite stick and I go, hey, I want you to sit, boom, dog sits. Lay down, dog lay down. Okay. But if I don't have this, it's like sit. The dog looks at me and says, well, maybe I'll think about it.
Right. I don't see many other questions coming up here. I
don't see any questions.
Yeah, let's see. I also wanted to ask about the best encryption, decryption. The best one is one that works.
Yeah,
that narrows it down. Well, I mean, there's like Pointy Castle equivalent or whatever it was. It was sort of the go-to one for a while. I don't know if anything else has changed in that arena yet. I don't do anything with encryption immediately.
Alrighty. Well, if that is about it, then hasta luego, amigos.
Bye.
We'll see you hopefully next week, and maybe with some guests, or maybe with more content.
Quite possible. Let me also check on the dates here.
But I am liking that we made it an hour and a quarter without repeating too many things.
I'm not sure what time of day, but I do know on the June 30th I am presenting, teaching a class, and I will definitely not be here 2 weeks from today. We are going to be on vacation. And if I try to do the show while I'm on vacation, then once again, I will not have a family anymore.
Yeah. Not so good. And so we'll try to get something together next Wednesday. And if it's conflicting with Scott's time, he won't be here, but it looks like I can be here. I'm also going to be speaking this weekend in North Lebanon at the GDG there, talking about null safety once again.
Nice.
I'm going to be looking to see if there's any other upcoming things. The best way to watch for me in other places, because I'm doing almost every GDG that has a Flutter content. If you go to gdg.community.dev, there's a selector button for Flutter only, which you have to scroll. Not with a scroll bar, but with the actual two-fingered scroll or whatever it is on your particular browser. So you can get over to where Flutter is, way over on the right-hand side. I looked for it for a long time and said, why is there no Flutter selector? And yes, you have to scroll without noticing that there's no scroll bar. So really, really, I mean, come on, you guys invented material. You guys should understand what material design looks like. It does not mean have a scrollable area without a frickin' scroll bar. Okay, there's my rant.
Hey, there goes our family friendly.
Oh,
there goes our family friendly.
I didn't say any words.
Anyway,
so I select Flutter there, and I'm probably at all the events that come up. Yeah.
At the risk of a small amount of advertising here, there is an event. Now, this is me putting this in here. It's not officially Flutter Community. This is Scott, but I'm on that account, so it's going to come up that way in the chat. But there is an AWS Amplify event coming up. This is the one I'm speaking at on the 30th. And you can go ahead if you are not on the live stream, you can go ahead and Google AWS Amplify App Circle, AppCircle, and you will get to see me. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be speaking about Flutter at that one. Somebody else at Amplify is going to be. I'm going to be speaking about CI/CD.
Yeah, actually,
which is a whole different thing.
Amplify is growing the team for Flutter developers.
Yep.
Program managers and stuff. So AWS.
And they're serious too. Yeah. Last time I looked, they were hiring 30.
Yeah.
30 Flutter developers. They're not playing games over there.
Yeah, definitely. So right now I think there are only like QS remote, but in the future this may change.
But I heard it's tough.
This we need to be. We know this is happening right now. Every single country is like airtight because all the things are happening. So please do not get angry because of this. It's just the world is like that right now. So
and that's I saw a couple of. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was about to tell you that in the same place that Randal says you can find about Flutter is not for US only or in English one. So you can find anything related to GDGs in Espanol or in any other language. So you can find it in there. I'm gonna be talking, I think, on the IO extended on Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's on Saturday. I don't think if I'm gonna be, but I can't remember the day. So
¿Es en español o inglés?
In español. Yes, it's Spanish because it's for IO extended. I think I can remember is the one for Mexico. So we're gonna be there talking about what Flutter gets new this IO.
Okay. Good. Very cool.
Okay.
And one of the things that I had noticed just recently, somebody was unhappy about so many jobs being US only, especially there was a developer relations job that was US only, and it was for mostly right now it's for writing things and making videos. And like, I don't have to be in the US for that. And I had to explain to them, but the part of the job also is showing up in person and talking to some groups at times. And with COVID, what they need is someone who can get into the country. You know, they're worried that the borders are opening and closing back and forth like crazy. So a lot of times, if the job entails even going and speaking to GDG groups, or if the job entails getting together at the office once a month, they might be saying US only, not because they care where you are, but because they might have to bring you in once in a while. And if the border's closed, everyone's stuck.
Right.
Yeah. So once the borders are opened up, I imagine a lot of these jobs are going to drop the US only thing.
Yeah, definitely. That's why I want to talk about this, because maybe I was one of the ones that, I don't know, maybe a couple months ago, I saw it and it was like, okay, everything I was looking into, not because I was looking for jobs, I also sometimes just look because telling people around. And I couldn't say because there was US only, remote US only. Europe, right? It's not only US, it's Europe. It's also close tightly. So it's the same thing. Even if it's in Europe or it's in the United States, there are only, even it's in Mexico. Mexico is not going to be allowing people right now to, you can came here maybe, we don't have that restrictions, but it's going to be hard for people to do that. To make a contract with people outside the country.
Right.
Okay, we are at an hour and 20 minutes now.
Okay.
So we're going to get back to the work that pays the bills.
Yes.
And
lunch.
I have some migration to do.
Alrighty. Well, we will see you next time, and hasta luego.
Thanks, Scott, for setting this up again. Yes.
Bye.
Thanks, Scott.